Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The meeting of the Economic Development Committee meeting will please come to order. Courtesy of the floor. Anyone? Signed it? No. Next, I would like to bring up Mark Hartney. Go a little bit out of order if Mark has a little announcement for us.
Just a quick update on the Green Knights Industrial Park 2 project.
Yes.
That we've been talking with you about. Last week was a very exciting week for the project. We were awarded a $3.9 million state award. 1.57 is a grant and 2.36 is a loan to continue doing the site work up there. So that's a really big win for that project. And so we expect to have subdivision approvals by the end of June, and hopefully a groundbreaking where we can get all your nice shoes nice and dirty by the end of July. Okay. So just wanted to kind of open up the meeting with some really good news that we were really excited to get last week.
Okay.
Very exciting.
Mark, will that put in all the roads, sewers, utilities? That like it's $4 million. That's going to take care of all the infrastructure.
It should
Engineering,
basically
planning.
The goal was to have all of the site work done, that all of the lots will be subdivided. The next thing will just be to go vertical. So that should get everything in. I don't want to say definitely yes, because until it's in. Yeah. But that'll get us most of the way there.
Excellent.
Good. Excellent.
And how does the loan portion of that work?
So through it's a business in our sites, and so the loan is the Green Knights Economic Development Corporation.
They're taking the loan out.
They're taking the loan, but it's patient capital. I think it may be interest only for 5 years and like a super low interest rate, and then you don't have to really start paying back the loan until like the lots are starting to be sold. So it's a very patient source of capital.
Okay, and of course, so then someone will build on it, take the lot, and then they'll pay off the loan that way with it. Okay.
They'll start paying down the loan.
Okay. Any other questions? Very exciting. Thank you. Next.
Madam Chair, I want to mention, too, that Mark and John Kingsley from LVEDC have been working on this project seemingly forever, and they've been doing a phenomenal job. They put lots of extra hours in. They're up at the site a lot of times, and Mark especially knows what's going on and has a good grasp of the economic development process, and so he's really been leading the charge, and I want to commend him from my perspective as director, that he's really been doing a great job, and you guys should appreciate that.
Yes.
That every decision you make that supports that project really makes a difference, and will make a huge difference in jobs and companies coming into that area. So thank you for supporting us and supporting him. To move on, I would like to present Lynn Erickson of the Da Vinci Science Center. She has an update on the Easton Da Vinci Science City project.
Thank you very much. And my colleague, Tricia, here is helping me with the electronics. You have a copy of the materials that I'm presenting right on this.
Oh, terrific.
Okay, terrific. Okay. And do we also have Ron Littlefield?
Ron is on the line.
Okay. All right. So I really appreciate an opportunity to provide an update on our Da Vinci Science City project.
Good.
And joining me on the phone is Ron Littlefield. He will be joining us by Skype a little bit later in the presentation. He was the former mayor of Chattanooga. Chattanooga is one of the places we've cited as a model for the potential impact a project such as the one we're proposing can have on the region. He has a long history in Chattanooga from in the 80s to the present, and served as city planner, director of economic development, and ultimately mayor. So he can really, he's passionate about Chattanooga, but he can certainly speak about the impact of the aquarium over time. So he'll share a few comments later in the presentation. So if we move to the first page, page 1. So as you know, it was 6 months ago that we announced with Mayor Panto plans to go forward with the Da Vinci Science City project. At that time, we also announced a feasibility planning period to ensure the validity of the business plan and the funding plan. And we want to provide an update on both of those tonight. If you move on to page 2, the city has validated for our board the $30 million financial commitment and demonstrated its ability to meet its financial obligations to the project. And as I believe you all know, they've moved forward with plans to acquire the site on 3rd Street, on the corner of 3rd Street and Washington, and they're scheduled to close on December 29th. We've prepared an analysis of the economic development impact that a project of this type might have over time on Northampton County. We have reviewed this with Tim and with County Executive John Brown, and we're submitting our report to you this evening. We've also studied the impact of a potential aquarium in the Poconos on our project, and we reviewed this with the county administration, and we wish to share that study with you tonight as well. Let's go to page 3. We intend to move forward later this summer to engage architects and exhibit designers to develop a master plan for the facility and for exhibits and programs, and then to test these in a marketing study, part of which you are funding through the hotel tax grant. In that study, when we have visuals that we can acquire from these architects and especially from the exhibit designers, that will allow us to ask the questions of potential visitors what they think, and to show them different concepts that we're proposing, and to ask them questions about what other places do they go, how often do they go, and to gauge their reaction. And that will really help to inform our attendance projections. Once we have completed the master plan and completed this marketing study, then we plan to engage a third party to test and validate our business plan and to ensure its viability. And this kind of third party will be able to look at our projections, everything from attendance day by day, week by week, to the staffing plan, to the aquarium costs, and to compare those with many other science centers and aquariums across the country. We think that's really important. We're not going to build anything that we don't know where the total dollars are coming from for the capital. So the most important consideration is the business operating plan and making sure we have a viable operating plan. So bringing in that third party is critical. And then we'll conclude the feasibility planning period and have a final report assembling all the architect's plans, exhibit plans, marketing study, business plan for your review. If we go to page 4, let's take a few minutes now to look at the impact of a for-profit aquarium in the Poconos. We've studied in depth. We looked at a lot of cities, similar cities with multiple aquariums. We studied in depth 2 major U.S. markets where there are major aquariums that exist in close proximity. In both of these cities, the 4 aquariums we looked at, 2 in each city, are in the top 25 aquariums in the country by attendance. They're very successful. Several other markets were studied where there are multiple aquariums in close proximity, such as Miami, Greensboro, Detroit was another one, for example. In all instances, the multiple aquariums coexisted and they were very successful. The key thing to their success seems to be that they were complementary. They had distinct experiences. They weren't identical, the same kind of experiences in each facility. And the study also details, and it's attached in a full review of the study is one of the later pieces in the document we shared with you, details other lessons learned, including the importance of not incurring long-term debt to construct the project and making sure we do all our planning very carefully up front. Oops, something happened. Well, hopefully you're following along. We're on page 4. So we do not want to pay debt service out of operations. And those aquariums that were not successful, that was the big factor that put them under. Now, in some cases, those aquariums today are very successful because the city or they went bankrupt and a private entity, helped to contribute to salvage them, or the city bailed them out. But the debt service was a key factor in putting them under. If you go to page 5, we can look at some more closely 2 cities that have multiple aquariums. On page 5, it's showing San Francisco, California. There's the California Academy of Sciences, which has the Steinhardt Aquarium. That experience would be more like ours because there are multiple components. We're not just building an aquarium. We're talking about a science city complex with a science center, IMAX, aquarium, and creativity studio. In the case of the California Academy of Sciences, they have a planetarium, an IMAX theater, a natural history museum like a science center, and also the aquarium. And then the Aquarium of the Bay is an aquarium. That's their total focus. They're 6 miles apart. If you look at the little chart there on the Steinhardt Aquarium, the main features of the Steinhardt Aquarium are they're looking at global ecosystems around the world. They're looking at aquatic life, throughout the oceans of the world, as opposed to the Aquarium of the Bay is really looking at the San Francisco Bay. So the experiences are very different. Their population within 50 miles is 6.7 million. Within 50 miles of our proposed site, there are 7 million people. I think it's 7.1 million people. So it's comparable in terms of the potential folks you're drawing within 50 miles. And as you know, within 100 miles, we have 30 million people. Both of those are very successful. If you go to the next page, page 6, if you look at Tampa Bay, in this case, I actually recently went to the Florida Aquarium. I have not been to the Clearwater Marine Aquarium. They're about 23 miles apart. If you look at some of the statistics there, so you've got downtown Tampa and downtown Clearwater, very different experiences. So the Florida Aquarium is tracing a drop of water to the Gulf of Mexico. So they have the freshwater and the saltwater experience. They've got a rainforest on the top level, as opposed to the Clearwater Marine Aquarium is more about marine mammals, dolphins, porpoises, and that sort of thing. Both of them have over 700,000 visitors, and their resident population within 50 miles is 3.8 million. Their tourist population is 14 million. So if you go to page 7, the key takeaway for us, as I said before, is having distinct experiences that are complementary. Here we're looking at a potential aquarium in the Poconos, possibly, and the Vinci Science City Aquarium here in Easton, Pennsylvania. Our focus will be on education. It will be very important for us to have a major exhibit on the Delaware and Lehigh River watersheds. We'll be overlooking the confluence of those two. I think, quite honestly, it would be quite odd if we didn't, because we picked a location on the river with a river view. And the opportunity for kids to look at their own environment and their own community and the local river watersheds and how they can take action to preserve and conserve those is really important. That being said, we can have kind of like a mountains to sea perspective where we're looking at, the Delaware River watershed starting up in the Poconos. The Delaware River moves down into the Chesapeake Bay and into the Atlantic Ocean. So yes, there will be sharks, and we'll have a 500,000-gallon tank between the Atlantic Ocean, but our story will be comprehensive and tied to our local community. And if you look, again, 7.1 million resident population within 50 miles, and actually checking with Discover Lehigh Valley, there are 15 million tourists in the Lehigh Valley. I'm guessing they're the Sands, Arts Quest, Dorney Park, and there are 25 million tourists annually in the Poconos. So these are all comparable, if not we may have, in some cases, better statistics than these other areas where there are multiple aquariums that were very successful. So we're excited about moving forward with the plans for the complex with all of these features: the Science Center, Aquarium, Theater, and Creativity Studio. If we go to page 8 and shift and kind of look a little bit at the potential economic development impact of a project of this magnitude on Northampton County. The primary motto we've used is, Tennessee, Chattanooga, and that's where we have Ron Littlefield joining us today. We looked at the actual experience in Chattanooga with our proposed experience in our initial feasibility study. And we believe the direct return on investment, or the direct economic impact to Northampton County, would come in 2 areas: both increased hotel taxes and increased real estate taxes. We estimate that the incremental tax revenue to the county will increase from $100,000 in year one, meaning the year we open, to $2 million, and actually could be sooner, because I think once we announce this is happening, there will be hotels going up and there will be other development. So conservatively, potentially, and $100,000 actually is not based on any new hotels, it's based on increased heads and beds because of this activity. To potentially $2 million in additional tax revenue in year 5 and $3.9 million annually from year 10 and moving forward. Based on these assumptions, over a 20-year period, the county could realize $53 million in incremental tax revenues. This is a long-term impact that could be really substantial. And we're not even talking about the educational impact and what it might mean for our community and workforce development and quality of life. In a few minutes, Ron Littlefield will share a little bit more his experience. I'll just wrap up a couple more pages and then we'll come back and invite him to talk specifically. If you look at page 9, kind of highlights the summary I just provided about the potential, provides the background detail on the potential economic development impact in Northampton County. This also does not include the jobs. We're projecting 200 full-time equivalent jobs, or the construction jobs, union wages, potentially 650 union jobs. On the left is the Tennessee story. The top, the top chart is showing the attendance, direct visitor spending, tax revenue, and the total economic impact on an annual basis, $115 million. Then it's showing the data about a 25-year impact. I want to highlight where it says collateral real estate investment. So they've had $2 billion worth of collateral real estate investment in Chattanooga. And then the annual hotel tax receipts and the increase of 500% in hotel tax receipts. I would say we've also studied other projects, not just Chattanooga, Tennessee. So, for example, in Norwalk, Connecticut, the Maritime Aquarium, as a result of the Maritime Aquarium, there's been $810 million in collateral real estate investment over a 20-year period in that community. In fact, in Connecticut, the 2 aquariums, the Mystic Aquarium, so that might be familiar to all of you, and also the Maritime Aquarium, they are cited as the single largest drivers of tourism and economic development in the state. So they're big drivers of tourism and also investment. If you look on the right-hand side, some of you have seen some of this before. You can, the top column is comparing the metropolitan statistical areas of the Lehigh Valley with the Chattanooga metropolitan statistical area. And you can see we have more population close by, within 50 miles, within 100 miles. If you look at the economic development impacts, you can see that our estimates are conservative compared to the actuals that have occurred in Chattanooga. And then the real estate tax revenue benefits and the income direct ROI benefits that I've suggested might occur to the county. The third chart down on the right, you'll see the first row. It says year, and it shows 2021 when we hope to open, 5 years out, 10 years out, and 20 years out. It shows the projected hotel taxes, increases in hotel taxes to the county. $100,000 the first year is just based on additional heads and beds. It's not based on any new hotels. And then the subsequent years are based on new hotels. The 5 years out assumes 1 new hotel project. And the mayor is already in discussion about that with 60 beds. The 10-year out projection assumes could be another hotel or another 60 beds. Maybe people are adding on or however that might play out. And then if you look at the real estate taxes, 5 years out, we're projecting an estimated additional $1.8 million in real estate taxes. The chart below provides the background information. That assumes $150 million in new assessed value properties. That could be a hotel and some other real estate development associated with it, maybe some retail or some infill, a higher level use of some of the properties in downtown Easton. If you look at 10 years out, that assumes 2 new hotel projects and a total of $300 million in initial investment. We think that that's pretty reasonable when you look at the numbers that these other communities have been able to generate as a result of a project of this magnitude. Last, I'd like to go to update you a little bit on the fundraising. So on page 10, as you know, our feasibility planning period budget is $1.2 million. There's a lot of business planning to be done to take on a project of this magnitude. We can't just kind of go into it without all this careful work. And we think these tasks are really important. We need a solid business plan to ensure that we'll get the economic and educational impacts that we would hope for. We're progressing on schedule to raise the $1.2 million, with the goal of completing all the work for feasibility by June of next year, so 1 year from now. That is a little bit longer than we originally projected. There's a lot of work to be done, and we're realizing the magnitude of the task. We presently have raised 2/3. We either have secured or have in negotiation 2/3 of that 1.2 million, about 800,000. So that allows us to move forward as we had hoped. And by July 1, we expect to have the funding in place to move forward with architectural planning and exhibits planning that I mentioned earlier in the presentation. If you look on page 11 and we talk about the fundraising for the full project, we're actually delightfully, I don't know if that's a word, pleased with the progress thus far from private and public funding sources, enabling us to achieve the full $130 million. We've made presentations to major funding projects or prospects. Some of those are like the naming opportunities like Coca-Cola Park, where an entity wants to put their name on the facility and they pay so much per year to have their name associated with it. And some are private permanent naming opportunities, like the Aquarium Engineering Center at Lafayette College, where you're giving probably at least an 8-figure gift to put your name on a building in perpetuity. We've had interest of both those types, and in fact, we've received unsolicited requests to talk about naming some of the buildings in the project. These don't happen overnight. It will take us a few months for these to come to fruition, but we're optimistic that by June of next year, at the end of the feasibility planning period, we will be able to secure 2/3 of the funding. It says on your thing, 65%, about $85 million by the end of the feasibility planning period. I'd like, maybe before questions, we should let Ron, Skype in Ron Littlefield. That's the end of the formal presentation that I have. We want Ron to say a few things. There are 2 other sections in the booklet we passed out. One is on more detail on the aquarium study, and then the second is more detail on the economic impact to the county of a project of this magnitude. Okay. When you by phone, the video's not working.
Ron,
Hello?
you are on.
Okay. Well, I've had a great deal of trouble hearing and understanding all that's been said, but I hope I am coming through okay. Tell me if I'm not.
You're very clear.
Very clear.
Okay. All right, good. Well, the story here in Chattanooga is the one that's familiar to a lot of people now, but going way back to October of 1969, we were declared by no less than Walter Cronkite on his world-renowned news program in October of 69 that the dirtiest city in America, meaning air pollution, was Chattanooga, Tennessee. Well, that might come as a surprise to a lot of people in Pittsburgh and other places, but we were a hot metal city in the South. We were what was referred to as a Rust Belt city in the South, and we were suffering and dying right along with those cities that had depended on that sort of industry for so many years. And our downtown, our riverfront, our river was essentially a sewer because we weren't doing a very good job of controlling what was going into the river. Our air was definitely very dirty. And one of the most thriving businesses that we had at that time was respiratory diseases. We had a lot of hospital and doctors that specialized in respiratory illness, and they were doing fine. But as the economy changed and those businesses declined, we knew we had to change ourselves. And there were those folks who tried to cling to the old way of doing business. And so we decided that we had to have, first of all, a conversation with the community. And so beginning in the 1980s, we had a major visioning program that went on for several months in the mid-1980s. And one of the ideas that came out of all this, and there were dozens of them, was to renovate the riverfront, and that was reflecting studies that had been done over these intervening years about what do you do with all of these old burned-out buildings and abandoned warehouses and so forth gathered along the riverfront, which were just an eyesore, if nothing else. It was a dangerous place down there. And so some university students back in the early 1980s had come up with the idea of an aquarium. Now, they were proposing something that was small and not all that significant. And over the years, and as we continued to discuss and massage this idea, that the aquarium grew, and we decided to approach the state and see if they would support us in a package of improvements for the city of Chattanooga. And the aquarium was part of that package. I won't go into all the details. It was a debate that went on for quite some time. There were a lot of naysayers. There were a lot of people that predicted that anything invested in something like that would be a waste of money. But cutting to the ultimate conclusion of the project, it has been just a resounding success from day one. We broke ground for the aquarium in 1988, and we concluded it in 1992. So it was about a 3-year program to build it. These are not simple structures, and ours was focused on freshwater. We had actually hired the same architects who were responsible for the Baltimore Aquarium and the Boston Aquarium. And, of course, both of those aquariums were on saltwater. And so in order to have a different niche, we went with freshwater. Now, we did have some saltwater exhibits in there because saltwater fish are more colorful and in some ways more interesting, specifically when you think about sharks. Mm-hmm. We often joke that children like to see things that can actually eat them. And, so you've got to have sharks in the mix. But the aquarium was predicted to have 650,000 people in attendance in the first year, and it made that mark in 14 weeks. And in the first year, we more than doubled the projected attendance. So that quieted some of the naysayers, and we followed up with exactly like you're talking about there. You're starting from the standpoint of a science center, which I think is excellent. We started with the aquarium, and then we proceeded to steal good ideas from cities all around the country and piece them all together into something like you're talking about as a complex. We have a science museum, or we call it the Children's Science Museum, and it is focused on children. We have an IMAX theater, which are pretty much ubiquitous all over the country now, but at that time it was a new idea. We recently upgraded our IMAX theater to laser projection. So it is far more startling, and the photography and the films are far more astounding than they used to be. And so we have built a complex of attractions. The effect of all of that has been that we continue to build hotel rooms in downtown, and these things tend to feed themselves. We use hotel-motel tax to continue to do improvements on our riverfront. It has gone from being just a no man's land and a sewer to a show place where we regularly have festivals, including an annual festival that's coming up for its 30th anniversary next month, actually this month, June. So it has been a resounding success, and we do have other aquaria that are competing with us. Many years after our aquarium opened, Atlanta opened a much much larger, fantastic aquarium in downtown Atlanta. And yes, we did take a little bit of a dip after that, but very soon our numbers went right back up. Ripley's has an aquarium in Gatlinburg, which is about 100 miles north of us here. That doesn't seem to have had all that much of an effect. It's a different kind of attraction up there, and it's in a mountain, a tourist area and so forth, and it's just one among many visitor attractions up there. But back to Atlanta, people were predicting that Atlanta would spell the doom of Chattanooga's aquarium. But one thing about our aquarium, the way it's designed, it's far more conducive to taking children's groups through. So we still get children's groups, school groups, up from Atlanta and North Georgia. We're right on the boundary of Georgia here. And so that's just kind of a continuous flow here. And we've been told many times by teachers and others who have to marshal groups through that our facility is much easier to manage than the Atlanta facility. Also, we have a lot of attractions that appeal directly to children. We have a butterfly forest, we have lemurs, we have otters, and we have penguins. In fact, one time back when I was mayor, I had the mayor of Atlanta up here, and she was speaking to a group in downtown Atlanta, and I was introducing her, and I joked with her that we were glad to see that after so many years that Atlanta followed our lead and built an aquarium in downtown Atlanta. But we still have better penguins than they do, which is actually true. Our penguins are true Antarctic cold weather penguins, and theirs were warm weather, and they're not quite as interesting or colorful or funny. So my advice would be to keep children in mind and just continue on the path that you're going. I have looked at your studies that you're undertaking, the consultants that you have. It looks like you are going about it in a very orderly and sensible and scientific way. And I can't wait to see what you do with it. I look forward to coming up there and seeing it someday. Do you have any questions?
Could you speak a little bit more to the economic development impact and also maybe tell the Volkswagen story?
Oh, yeah, I love to tell that story. Well, it was like everything else. People said, downtown is dead. You just need to go away and just let it die. And so many people were not willing to concede that. And so when we began to build the aquarium, people started considering the possibility of restaurants. They started considering the possibility of renovating some of the older buildings down there that were architecturally interesting and still solid and sound, and began to build sandwich shops, and some offices in upper floors and so forth. And the economic effect was obvious fairly early on. And so as we began to predict where the aquarium would take economies in downtown Chattanooga, there were various predictions and proposals, and someone came up with the idea of, wouldn't it be great if we could experience as much as $750 million in investment. And bear in mind, this was a blown-out area in downtown Chattanooga. And many people thought that was preposterous. Well, we blew past that number in fairly short order in just a very few years. And depending upon where you draw the boundary, there are billions of dollars in investment that have taken place in downtown, and it's continuing. People are living down there where they never would have considered that before. We have condominiums, we have apartments, we have hotels, which I've already mentioned. We have a downtown major grocery chain, which you couldn't have gotten a major grocery chain to move into downtown Chattanooga years ago, but it has. It's been very successful. And so that, coupled with all of I'm sorry, someone's trying to beep in on my phone. I'm just ignoring them. All that is going on down there has created a very different quality of life. Now, up on the hill over downtown, we've always had an art museum up there, and it has developed along with the rest of the city. And so we, like many communities, were always chasing industry. There were those in the community that went back to the days of Chattanooga being an industrial giant of a city, as it was way back when. And they just could not be comfortable with the fact that we might not be able to attract the investment of a major manufacturing facility again. So over the years, we had chased this company and that company, and we had the opportunity to approach Volkswagen, which was looking for a place to have its next and only assembly plant. They had an assembly plant up in Pennsylvania years ago. That was back in the 70s. They attempted to build an American copy of what was then called the Rabbit. It's now the Golf. And it had not been successful, so people were a little leery of whether Volkswagen was really serious about it. They came in looking at 130 different cities in the country, and they were looking at building a $1 billion plant. They wanted to build a plant that was environmentally sensitive, and we were in the mix. So this competition went on for months, and it went down to a handful of cities that met all their requirements. And ultimately, it came down to Chattanooga and Huntsville, Alabama. Well, Huntsville, Alabama has a lot of history with German technology, mainly from the era of Werner von Braun and the rockets and all that were built in the science that took place in Huntsville, Alabama after World War II. Mm-hmm. And so they were a step ahead of us, and we always knew that. And there were considerable efforts by all this handful of cities, and particularly by Huntsville and Chattanooga, to attract Volkswagen, and the incentive package got to be very large. If you read about it, if you Google it, you'll see that it was a major incentive package. And so when it finally came down to the announcement, the Volkswagen officials actually set up in Huntsville and Chattanooga the night before the announcement. So our two cities were still in doubt about which one had been chosen. And so the day of the announcement, it was our part was scheduled at the Art Museum overlooking downtown Chattanooga and the riverfront. And the then head of Volkswagen of America, a fellow by the name of Stefan Jacoby, he's no longer with the company. I think he retired some years ago. But he stood up in front of dozens of us gathered there in the Art Museum in front of a big glass window that overlooked all of the riverfront. And he said, you know, when people are pursuing a manufacturing facility like Volkswagen, a major facility like this, there are always incentives, and people always say, well, it was the incentives that made the choice. It was the incentives. That's the reason they came here. The $1 million, millions of dollars in tax incentives and so forth. And he said, frankly, when you get down to the handful of competitors and you total up the incentives, they tend to balance out. They're pretty much the same, and that's true. If you looked at what Alabama was offering, Tennessee was offering, they were pretty much the same. And then he waved his hand toward the glass window overlooking the riverfront and all, and he said, we came here, we chose Chattanooga because of the intangibles. And then he went on to explain that by intangibles he meant factors that had to do with quality of life, because he said, you know, a company is more than just machines. It's people. And people want to live in a city where they're proud to live, and it's a clean city and a place where they can raise their children and enjoy life. And he said, because at some point the intangibles become tangible, and that's why we chose Chattanooga. So I always love to tell that story, because there are people who, throughout this whole several decades of Chattanooga's transforming itself from the dirtiest city in America to a city that's clean and green, people said, well, you've given up on manufacturing. And then there in 2008, we landed the largest manufacturing investment facility in the United States, and still one of the largest, a $1 billion plant, which is now expanding. They're building 2 vehicles there. You're seeing them on your streets up in Pennsylvania. The Passat, which had a little bit of a problem with the diesel problem, and you all know all the history of that, and a new SUV, which is just beginning to be sold, but they're holding up well. They're still our environmental partners in all that we're doing in Chattanooga. And the aquarium was the center. The aquarium set the stage. It was where we drove a stake in the ground in downtown and said, we're not giving up on downtown. We're going to continue to invest. This is a city that has a future. It's not a city that just has a past. And so it's played out over the years, and I'm sure you will have a similar experience there in Pennsylvania.
Thank you very much. We might be out of time. I don't know if you're doing any questions. Does anyone have, especially for Mr. Littlefield,
Yeah, may I
have
ask?
any questions?
May I ask a question? My question would be, how much did the city of Chattanooga put into the aquarium, and what was their annual debt service to pay for that?
Well, I don't have the absolute numbers for you to answer that, but most of the debt service, the city has invested in the plaza in downtown. A lot of it is infrastructure that falls into various categories. We have moved some sewers. We've separated some old combined sewers that need to be separated anyway. A lot of what we have done are things that needed to be done, but we had to have an incentive and a reason to do it, so we have done that. Most of the capital investment, like you're thinking of, has been paid for out of hotel-motel tax. And that is one of those things where the more we build, the more hotel-motel tax we collect. And as we love to point out, it's not the citizens of Chattanooga who pay that, unless for some reason you're going downtown and staying in a hotel or motel in downtown Chattanooga. It's visitors from out of town, a lot of them from Atlanta, a lot of them from Knoxville, Nashville, and cities much farther away that come here. We attract conventions now that we never would have attracted before, because all we had to attract convention goers were some old mountain-type attractions, and those were dated and not really all that attractive anymore. But since the aquarium, they've actually spruced up, and they're doing a better job now. So, yes, there has been some investment, but you have to invest. I don't have the actual numbers for you. If you could be more specific or send me some questions, I can direct you to where those are. But it has not been a drag on the city's budget or the county's budget. It's simply been something that has been taken into the budgets of the Parks and Recreation Department of both the city and the county for maintaining the trail system, the river walk. If you go on Chattanooga's website, you can see what our riverfront looks like now, and you can see that we've invested quite a bit in hard surface along the riverfront where boats are docked. We have a lot of activity down there that we support with public funds, but those public funds are for the most part generated by visitors to our city, not by our local residents.
Any other questions for Mr. Littlefield?
Mayor Littlefield, you mentioned state support. Did you receive state support, or did you just lobby for it?
Early on, we qualified for a $10 million package. Now, that didn't all go to the aquarium, and all of that, actually, none of it went to the aquarium. As we continued to develop this idea, all of the money for the aquarium, which was about $45 million at that time, now this is in the early 1980s, all that came from private donors, private investors. And we invested our money in the plaza and parks and all around the aquarium to support the aquarium and in some of the infrastructure that was invested. And then part of that package went to renovation of an old downtown movie palace, which is a jewel and is another type of downtown attraction which desperately needed some money, and other facilities in downtown. So it didn't all go to the aquarium, but we did establish ourselves as the state aquarium, the state of Tennessee, which we have other cities in Tennessee that are on rivers, Nashville and Memphis in particular, and Knoxville for that matter. But we were able to get in the door first and establish ourselves as the aquarium of the state of Tennessee.
Thank you.
Interesting. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much for the,
Thank you also, Mr. Littlefield. We really appreciate it. We'll follow up. Okay, take care. Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm going to skip past the Hotel Tax 2005 update because we are still working on that. And in the interest of time, I'm going to ask Mark to come up and finish his short report on economic development, and then we just have a few items on CDBG gaming and the regular hotel tax.
Thank you. I wanted to let you all know 2 Saturdays ago we broke ground at the Vastex project. That was the project that you approved the $50,000 job creation grant. So we're very excited to see that moving forward, and I think they are expecting that to be completed towards the end of this year. So they could be moving over by the end of this year. It was a very nice ceremony. And wanted to also update you on our shell building program that we've been working on through the General Purpose Authority and what we're calling the Northampton County Development Partnership, which includes the Industrial Development Authority and the Northampton County New Jobs Corps. We're expecting to, the entities have approved a $500,000 subordinated loan to our first project. And the participation agreement, the General Purpose Authority will be the lead entity in making that loan, but we expect to go to closing sometime towards the end of June. And we've also started some discussions on what would be our second shell building project with Lehigh Valley Industrial Park. Still very early stages of that, but we're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of a 40,000 square foot building in LVIP 7 for small manufacturing companies. This is what we've been hearing over the last, couple of years, that we are just out of inventory. LVEDC released their latest real estate report, and I think the industrial vacancy rate right now is down below 4%, and probably 3.6% of the vacant industrial space is functionally obsolete. There is just no new inventory out there. So we're excited where this is going and wanted to update you and keep you abreast of where we're going.
Are we going to...
Sorry.
go ahead.
You have one in progress, right? And then you're going on the second one. When do you think... I mean, I don't have a problem with the concept, but before you build a third one, are you going to benchmark what's happening with the first two? Because I mean, you're doing something on speculation.
And I would imagine we're really anticipating, unless the market really goes soft in the time that we're building these, I think before it's even under roof, it's going to be leased or sold. And if that's the case, we're going to start looking for the next one. And this LVIP partnership has the potential that we could do multiple with them based on a successful outcome.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah, actually, that was basically my question, is that we're not going to get too far ahead of projects before they're filled out, and stretched out.
The LVIP will probably buy it, right?
The way we look to probably structure this without getting into too much detail, again, it's really, really early. They will wind up being the general partner in it and kind of be the owner and manager, like a limited liability corporation or general partnership will be formed, and they will be the managing partner.
Because they like to have equity in things, right? LVIP.
Right. And this could potentially be an equity deal for the other investors in this.
Yeah. Now, I mean, so you're saying that like they have equity in it, but I mean, are they putting equity in it while we had the risk, though?
No. Everybody will be assuming some sort of risk. They will have the most risk.
Okay, because I mean, it'd be great to have a property, have someone fix it up for you, and then you can sell it.
Yeah.
No,
So
no,
this is
they
actually a new
would be.
building.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, you have, but I mean, you have land, and
Oh,
you
yeah,
have someone
land and developing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would be equally at risk, and this whole concept came out of BB&T solicited grant proposals. They had a economic development fund based on from the merger, and I think they had somewhere in the neighborhood of like $2.5 million. So the county, LVEDC, and LVIP partnered on an application. We're expecting to hear that later in June, if and what we were awarded. But that really kind of kick-started this idea of getting this partnership together with LVEDC, or LVIP. Excuse me.
We can only hope that it'll be as successful as Techo Block. And that shell building, we've heard for years on council that it was a bad idea and it was nothing, and then all of a sudden.
And I mean, this is
Now-
based on two other, so Bethlehem Tech Center 1, Bethlehem
That's
Tech
right.
Center 2,
Absolutely.
and Bethlehem Tech Center 3. So there were 3 tech centers that were developed. I think it started in like the early 90s, and they kind of did them one at a time. And that, was a huge project for South Bethlehem in getting those going. So, and there's precedent of these different authorities working together to do these types of projects.
Very good. Thank you, Mark.
And I'm going to ask Frank to come up and give a brief report on CDBG, and then Karen will come up with the Gaming Authority and Hotel Tax.
Good evening, County Council members. I'd like to give the Council an update on the 2017 Community Development Block Grant Program. DCED recently ran a request for application process during April. The results were that Northampton County received 34 applications requesting funds. Municipalities in Northampton County submitted requests totaling $2.582 million. Housing, planning, public service, and fair housing requests totaled an additional $940,000. The county has a lot of exciting applications that were submitted, including 12 from first-time applicants. There were several innovative applicants creatively using CDBG funding. 4 county departments have submitted applications as well this year. According to the Philadelphia HUD office, there is not currently any additional financial information about the 2017 funding entitlements coming up from Washington. I polled my CDBG colleagues. Their thinking is that the county may get a notice of funding somewhere around June 15th or thereabouts. DCD expects a flat funding allocation that would give Northampton County an entitlement about the same as 2016, approximately $1.395 million. HUD has also issued a waiver on the 30-day public notice requirement in order to allow entitlement communities like Northampton County to comply with the August 16th submission deadline of the Community Action Plan. Thank you for your time. Questions?
Any questions?
No questions, just a comment. They did run into a council member from Bath, and they were very thankful and happy about the grant process last year, and that project is underway, and I just wanted to convey that to you.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
I just wanted to give you a quick update on the Gaming Authority. We haven't held any meetings. There are 28 open projects right now. They consist mostly of the 2016 round. Round 1 final reports will be due in June, the end of June. Round 2 and the uncommitted round would be due the end of December 2017. Applicants are allowed a 60-day time frame for any backup documentation that they need to collect, like canceled checks that are outstanding. To wrap up those grants, it could possibly be February, March of 2018. For the hotel tax, about the gaming, we did receive first quarter check. And then we'll have to wait and see if the second quarter comes in. But it is in our restricted account. For hotel tax, the 2018 application round closed yesterday. We received 38 applications. They total $852,501, which is approximately twice as much as the projected dollars that we have to give out.
Naturally.
And that's common. That's common that we receive twice the amount of the requests. I will, over the next week or so, be reviewing those applications. Sarah, our executive secretary, is assisting me in collecting any information that wasn't submitted with the applications, like a W-9 or financials, things like that. And then we are forming a review committee. Councilman Werner has agreed to serve on that committee. Thank you. The other grants that I'm working with now, I have 38 outstanding, let me go back. We have 34 open projects from previous hotel tax grant awards. The semi-annual reports for 2017 are due in July, and then we close them out March of the following year. So those 23 projects will be closed out in March of 2018. So does anyone have any questions?
So the 800-pound gorilla in the room, I think, is last Friday was the deadline for the slots. And they didn't come to an agreement on that. They're tying it with the budget.
Right.
And it should be the end of June. Cashing that out, I think what it means to us, as when we've learned when we talked to Mario Scavello, that they're going to have the portion of the table games that was allocated through the county's gaming authority.
The slots?
Yes, slots.
Funds.
I do not think that is going to be happening in the future. I mean, that's Mario Scavello told us, that's what I'm reading in the paper, that it's going to go through the CFA.
There is speculation, and I've been reading the paper also, and I spoke with our attorneys today, that there is speculation it could move to the CFA. We won't know until, the final ball drops, and when the budget's passed. I mean, that could even extend to August, July, August. So we're in a waiting period right now.
Mr. Werner.
Well, I was going to, on the same, if you don't mind, the same tack is that reading in that same article, looks like the banana factory is going through a $18 million enhancement, and the state is promising $250,000 per year
For 20 years.
for 20 years. Yeah, so that's I know we've funded Arts Quest a lot, so that we have to take that in consideration as we move forward. Any comment on
Yeah, I
that, Tim?
think we have
on that?
No, it's just I've been reading the same reports, and when I spoke with Senator Scavello's office, their indication was that that was in the legislation, and that would give them a guarantee of $5 million, which they could utilize up front to be able to borrow whatever they need for the project, to move things across. I know as much as you know, and as she knows right now, because it is in the budget process. So Senator Boscola had said that they would do things retroactively. So, and I have no idea how the courts will respond to that. So,
Explain, what do you mean by the courts?
well, the closeout date was May 26th for a solution to slots. So
Okay.
They say they have a solution, but they're going to
Oh,
do it
might have to.
retroactively, and how long it'll take to do it, I have no idea.
Right.
Courts might respond to that. They may say, fine, when you get to it, you get to it, or they may say, we have a deadline,
Right.
and things may change. So we don't know until we hear from the courts, and we don't want to speculate anything.
Right.
But we are prepared for any changes. Karen and I especially have been meeting to make sure that any changes that occur, we can adapt to them. And as you've heard, there are a lot of projects out there that it's going to take a while yet for them to get processed, finished, reports in. Might be another year to a year and a half before all of that stuff that's already out there is closed up. So depending on what shuts down when and where monies go, we still have a lot of work.
Well, has this,
Karen's doing a great job.
well, okay. I'm just curious if the Da Vinci did put in a request for hotel tax for this year. Or,
For the 30, They did put one in for
Okay.
2017, the 50,000. And then, let's see, Da Vinci. I do not see one here from Da Vinci for 2018 within the 38.
Because new fundraising is, as you heard Lynn say, is up to 3/4 of the 1.2 million. They may feel that they have what they need except for the 17. And they may
Okay.
be holding back until they need the next phase of it. That's speculation.
But I mean, this is such a major project. I would hope we would have some major hotel money to, as things move forward and become more solidified.
Right. Okay.
Could-
Thank you, Karen.
Got a question?
Sure.
You didn't have a question?
I was just
You can
going
go first.
I was just going to ask Karen, have you had any input directly from any of the state officials besides Scavello? Have you even talked to Scavello or Boscola?
I have not talked to Senator Boscola. We did have a meeting with
Scavella.
Scavella
Okay.
a few months ago, about 2 months ago.
Yeah, and it's pretty much on, what he told us is pretty much
Is that
happening.
accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
And now we're just following it in paper. We
Yeah.
have no additional information or input to indicate what's going on because it's rolled into.
Yeah. And as I said, I was at that meeting with Boscola and the governor, and she basically made the statement that they were going to not fund through the gaming authority for Northampton County, and it was going to go through the CFA. So that,
That's the general impression.
yeah, and that's, when we were up there, Mario said the same. So I got 2 state senators that are influential in that area telling us that's what's happening. I have one question,
Okay,
too.
sure.
So the 2005, Tim, I know that you're changing that, and we may not have time to go through that, and but my concern is that this might be a source for, long-term funding of the Da Vinci Center, somewhat. So
yeah.
I'm concerned that we put like our last 2005, which is expired, where we
Right.
supported Channel 39 and what was it? Arts Quest. Arts Quest. That had a limit, and when that finished,
Right.
I think it was with the state law too, right?
Right.
That it had, the next project had to be totally unique.
A new project, yeah.
A new-
Yeah, so
new project.
can
so
we
we're,
get-
we're
can we
redesigning
get
the
away-
program to kind of broaden the impact of that.
Yeah.
However, if council chooses to use that money, it's really up to you guys. But we're going to offer you a program that broadens the impact across the county rather than concentrating it in any one operation.
Yeah.
If you choose to go another direction, we work for you. So we're happy to develop what needs to be done for that. But our impression is that we now have an opportunity to do multi-year grants, develop the kind of Arts Quest kind of development, only with smaller operations
Yeah.
over many years, and keep good control of it, monitor it. We'll present that to you once we get some more
Yeah.
legal things straightened out here and some insurance things. We'll present that to you for next month, but if you choose to go in another direction with that, we're, as I say, we work for you folks, so we're happy to
Yeah.
change it and make it.
Right.
But right now, we're looking at a 3-year to 5-year grant, minimum of $50,000 a year, maximum of $150,000, and total project costs for the projects themselves would be somewhere between $300,000 and $1.5 million.
Yeah.
And outside of the normal, concentrations in the cities and that sort of thing. So hopefully getting more money spread out across. Again, if you guys select that
Yeah.
project as what it's for, we'll certainly change
Well, I'm
it.
just speaking for one of
Sure.
9,
Sure.
but that's where my mind was going.
Well, just if I may, I personally wouldn't mind, seeing some of it. I would kind of had 2 programs going on there at once. I wouldn't mind seeing one program go down towards like the aquarium or something on there, but I definitely want to make sure we spread it around the county. I mean, obviously, I realize a lot of the hotel stays generate down in Bethlehem and Easton, but some of that is because that's the areas we fund as well. So I mean, we keep continuing to fund those and leaving the rest of the county out.
Yeah, I'm not making the decision. I'm just giving you what like I do foreshadowing, like this is the way I'm thinking, but I'm not committing myself to it. This is foreshadowing. This is how I'm thinking, but I'm not committing myself.
I like
You taught that in English?
Oh, he taught that
I like your foreshadowing.
So in the
I'm
interest,
not the only English teacher.
sir.
No, I'm on the same page with Hayden, with the idea that we funded the PBS and the Arts Quest programs. They were highly successful, and they were able to maintain a sustainability. Therefore, I think this would be a good way to reinvest in another program that would also enhance another area of the three areas, the three major areas of our community. So it's a good idea. I'm on the same page with Hayden on this. So.
Absolutely. In the interest of time, Mike Brett has our affordable housing report. Can you do it in 3 minutes, Mike? All right. It might take 3 minutes for Mike to get up here because his foot's kind of... He's in recuperation mode.
Yeah, 3 minutes is up.
All right. I'll be brief. Currently, we have 3 open rounds of SIP. 2015 round of SIP was implementation year 2016. There's $720,000 awarded to 22 projects. 11 of them are still open due to contract extensions. They'll be closed out by the end of this year with an expended amount of $385,000 plus dollars. 2016 SIP is implementation year 2017. There was $700,000 awarded to 19 projects. 1 has closed their contract already, and we still have 4 pending contracts that we're waiting for to be fully executed. SIP 2017 opened May 15th. Letters of intent to apply are due June 9th, and that closes July 17th. So if any of you have any constituents, organizations, municipalities that you would like us to personally contact, please forward the contact information to Tim, and he'll make sure I get that, and I'll personally reach out to them to let them know this opportunity. Affordable Housing Program, which is funded through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We will be announcing a $200,000 award opening July 10th. Due September 15th. Internally, we revised the guidelines quite a bit internally, and right now those guidelines are being reviewed by the advisory committee. So within the next 2 weeks, we'll have them finalized and be ready for the July 10th announcement. So are there any questions? Is that 2.5 minutes maybe?
Well done. That's not for you. I just have one question. May I interject something? The mayor of Easton's here. I believe he was, I'm assuming he's here for the Da Vinci program, but if he isn't, I just want to acknowledge him here in the audience first of all, see if he had anything to add.
I would just thank you, Mr. Warner. I came obviously because we've been working hard with Vinci, and I know that there's still skepticism in the community. I understand that, and I wouldn't expect it to be anything different because I have my own skepticisms. We're putting up $30 million, but we're very, very pleased with what we've seen over the last 6 months. It's been going extremely well. A lot of good studies are being done. My main study is a traffic study, a parking study, and the most important one, the marketing study. We need to validate the number of guests. And is it 400,000 or is it 600,000? That's a huge difference, and we need to validate that because our money is repaid by 2 major taxes: the amusement tax, which is 5% of the admissions, and the parking fees that we charge. So that's what's going to get. Right now, Crayola gives the city of Easton directly to our general fund budget about $1.5 million a year, and they attract about 400,000 now. So if we get to the 400,000, we'll cover our debt. If we get higher than that, we'll actually have money that we're going to pay the debt down faster. So that's what my real intent is. We don't play money with games. Even our new city hall building has only a 15-year bond issue. I don't believe in spreading debt out over a long period of time. If you can't pay for it up front, you've got to pay for it in a short term. So that's what's given us our A-plus credit rating from a triple B. We've gone to an A-minus, now to an A-plus. So the finances of this project are very important to us. And we're really excited about what we're learning, and we meet all the time. I'm meeting with potential donors, and as Lynn said, it is amazing. People are really, big, large corporations are really interested in this project. So that's where we're at. So thank you, Mr. Warner.
Can I ask? Sure. So where are you guys getting your part of the funding from?
We will be borrowing the $24 million. The $6 million we're only taking out this year. The $24 million will be a bond issue. And we will pay it back with roughly $1.7 million a year on a 20-year note, because I won't go out 30.
Yeah.
And it'll be paid out between all of our taxes, including the earned income tax for the 200 jobs. We're projecting about a $1.9 million return on 450,000 guests. On 600,000, we pay it down that much faster.
Great. I like the short-term loans, but do you think, obviously, while it's great to see the renovation go on down there, do you see any concern about chasing out lower-income families or any of that?
That's coming to fruition. It probably won't be for another 3 years. That's what I'm projecting. I've told City Council the same thing. We're going to have to come up with affordable housing policy because right now everything that's being done in downtown with all these new high rental areas, they're vacant properties. We've not displaced anyone yet. The good news is we've got McDonald's is even doing a major renovation to their facility, and right across the street we'll be announcing the Heritage Lane project very soon, which will be a condominium project and bringing, again, millennials downtown for the most part. But sooner or later, and we are expanding into the West Ward right now, and we thank these people right here who help us do that. We have some significant issues that are really starting to turn. We're seeing more and more young families because the real estate in that area is affordable.
Right.
And we need to keep it that way.
Yeah,
so you're absolutely correct. It's something that's been, that G word is on my mind all the time. We haven't experienced it yet, but sooner or later we're going to get to that point. And from a person who grew up in public housing until I was 10 years old, public housing is a hand up, not a hand out. And my father got out of the war after everyone else did, so all the jobs were taken, and we lived in public housing when I was 10 years old. I certainly don't want to gentrify the city. I love living in the city.
Great. That's good. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peg.
And, going back to history again, I love to look back on what we've done and accomplished. And they looked at the projections for the Crayola Center. Mm-hmm. Remember that? We were going to have this many in 5 years. Well, it was like a year or two, you had that many. So I really look at this whole Da Vinci project as a whole thing just like that. It's exciting, and if we can do all the planning, the day-to-day work that has to be done, I just think it's going to be...
We almost lost Crayola. And what a lot of the public forgets about is the money we've invested in other projects.
Mm-hmm.
Crayola was leaving because they wanted the whole building.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to move the National Canal Museum down to the canal,
right.
which at that time they were all upset with me, but now they love it because the partnership with the DNL has been phenomenal.
Right.
And we paid $300,000 to terminate the McDonald's lease.
Yeah.
Then we put $1 million, we spent $1 million on the building that is now the public market, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the College Hill, we had their neighborhood association, we said we'll put up half of the new fountain if you do the fountain. We did the same thing on the south side, we'll put up $70,000 if you get if you raise $70,000 for the new field house. And then I got all the contractors to donate all their labor, so we had about a $450,000 field house. Again, that's what we try to do, because I use the term very honestly, I use it, and the county's been a great player with us. Look at the silk mill with a $100 million investment in private money, not counting what the public money is, but I call it OPM, other people's money.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have it. I don't have $30 million to give, and it's always been very clear that this is our general fund and this is Da Vinci. And as long as Da Vinci can get a return on investment that's going to at least break even, we're okay. But if it doesn't, then we don't have the money to put into it. Now, the good news is we've already started seeing a lot of development in downtown in that area that has not been a significant area for investment. So the southern part has become real interest, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing, Mayor, that I was thinking about is, I love, no offense, I love the south side of Bethlehem, what's going on there. But the same token, now the state is guaranteed to the banana factory on the south side $250,000 a year for 20 years. So, it seems like a lot of money. Matt, and I know me and you think a lot alike about spreading it around and not showing favorites and stuff. But I'm looking at that amount of money going into the south side. Maybe it's time for Easton to get a little bit more of that 2005.
Well, and I love all the other two cities in the Lehigh Valley, and I love our sister city, Bethlehem. But we have a saying that Allentown has the NIS, Bethlehem has the CRIS, Easton we do it the old-fashioned way. We work hard. We don't have those programs. And the CRIS hasn't really gotten off the ground yet in Bethlehem. They only have the one project, the social distillery. But they're going to get it. The new Better project, the parking garage. It's really going to start happening for the south side. And Lehigh is finally starting to get involved a little bit like our Lafayette College has been involved. Lehigh is starting to, the new president's phenomenal. He's really getting involved in the business of the south side, because Lehigh has really pretty much taken over a large portion of the neighborhood. Good. Mike, but just to go back, we knew about Ripley's. I know that was a bone of contention, and I understand that. But just like we knew we were getting, we were selected in Easton in July and didn't announce it till November. There's certain things that we can't talk about publicly, and these are public meetings. And it's unfortunate because we really still don't know if the Ripley's is really going to happen. They claim it's going to happen. That's great. But when you look at my intent for the Da Vinci Center, it's because I'm more impressed with the Science Center. I believe that the sciences are really where our nation can take force. And the STEM project and process that we have, and now adding art so we have a STEAM facility, that to me is all about education. Walking around and seeing a mermaid show to me is not what I want the Da Vinci Science Center to be. I want that aquarium to be about learning, seeing why do the shad come up to the freshwater and spawn and then go back to the ocean. Those are the kinds of things I'm really looking at. The students don't know that. And we need to start getting them more interested in the whole county.
And Da Vinci has such a history. I mean, they have a track record.
Yes.
Thanks, Mayor.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you all. Have a
Thank
great
you
day.
so much, Mayor, and I apologize for not introducing you sooner.
No, let her. That's fine. Let her
Bob
apologize. That's
covered
good.
for me.
I like that.
Thank you very much. Great meeting.
Can I add?
Any other
Go ahead.
questions?
Just one quick thing. Some of you may have read about the Bethlehem LERTA. We did get some paperwork with all
Yeah.
kinds of information. What I did was I went to our GIS department and I had them create maps and parcels, and they should be enclosed in your packet. I think that's much greater detail visually than what the city provided us with their ordinance. So take a look at that sometime. I think it's interesting.
Thank you.
John, can I say a
Very
question?
good.
When is the ordinance, do we have an ordinance to approve, or where are we at in regards to what our next step is?
For the LERTA.
Yes.
My understanding is that the city of Bethlehem is in the process of approving it if they haven't already done so, and the next stop is for the school district
Yep, that's, okay.
to
You're on
approve
track,
it,
Warren.
and then it will come here.
That's what I thought. Yeah, thanks.
But we did receive a copy of the ordinance passed by Bethlehem, and I
Yeah, we did.
took that
Okay.
and we sent it down to GIS for some better maps than were provided by the city.
Okay. Anything else, Mr.
Just
Warren?
one more thing. It's a comment I want to make is that, the mayor and I were fortunate enough to be involved in the fountain on a park, a reproduction of something that was history. And the park was a wonderful place to be, but when we put the fountain there, water drew people, they drew all kinds of interest. I feel the same way about the aquarium. I think that it's going to draw the interest, it's going to bring the people. Water draws people. I made the comment years ago with the mayor when we opened it up, and I still believe it, and I still think the fishbowl is a good idea at the bottom of the park. So.
Anything else for the good of the order? If not, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Good job.
Me too. Well, I thought that was only fair.